I'm about to get out of town for the one and only time this summer. I'm going to take the FXR because I'm driving up to the Arctic North up in upstate New York, and those roads are so bad from the ice in the winter that they get all expansion cracks, get all bumpy, and I think it would honestly break my frame if I took the shellhead. So it's a sad day, but that's kind of why I bought the FXR. So she's ready to go right now. This is only her second time outside of town, and looking forward to seeing what a mile muncher she is, hoping that she doesn't let me down. And there's the shovelhead, feeling bad about leaving her behind. So the total trip is going to be about 750 miles. Doing it in 2 days on the way up because we're going to stop over at one of my wife's friends, and then on the way back I'm doing it in 1 day. And I just called my wife, told her I'm heading out on the road. She said drive fast, take chances. Here's me warming up the FXR. Warming up Evos is really important because you can blow a head gasket on them if they're not fully warmed up before you start getting on the gas. And here's at a gas stop in Virginia. Every time I've ever driven through Virginia, I've gotten rained on. And it's the only time I got rained on the trip. Here's after the rain, getting out into the countryside of Virginia. So I'm trying to go and find the house of my wife's friend that we're staying at that evening. It's really beautiful here. All the ride prior to this I didn't film because it was just bumper to bumper throughway traffic, and I'm a little bit scared to drive with one hand holding the GoPro, one hand driving when it's so tight and fast. But once I got out here, I'm starting to dry off a little bit because I'm out of the rain, and it's really beautiful countryside. This is where my GoPro battery died, so I don't have any other footage until I get up to New York after this. Once I got to New York, I had an opportunity to ride around with my dad a little bit. He's got a '08 Heritage with a 96 cubic inch motor and a 6-speed. So it's the same bike that I had earlier that I sold. It's a good bike, good and reliable, but I just don't care for how the Softail looks or handles. But he loves his, put some miles on it. While I was up there, we had an opportunity to do a little bit of a speed comparison between the FXR and the 96-inch motor with the 6-speed. What we did was top gear roll-ons from 60 to 80, and we did a test with the Heritage in 5th gear, which is a 1-to-1 ratio, I believe, which is the same as the 5th gear of the FXR. And we found that both bikes accelerate about the same speed. The 96-inch motor has a lot more power, but the bike is like 200 pounds heavier, and it's got a lot more wind resistance than the way I've got my FXR set up. So they went about the same with the 1-to-1 gear ratio. In 6th gear for the Heritage, the difference was quite pronounced, with the FXR being much faster from 60 to 80. So it was a kind of an interesting little taste speed test we did there. Not a taste test. Here's up on the St. Lawrence River, headed out next to Cape Vincent. There's a lighthouse, and that's the mouth of the St. Lawrence as it enters Lake Ontario. And then I've got some footage up here of the lighthouse itself and the grounds. It's pretty beautiful up there for about 2 months of the year. The rest of the time it sucks. Here's me pulling up on my dad, riding with his girlfriend on the back. She's also his wife and my mom, so. After a week's vacation up here in New York on Chameau Bay, Lake Ontario, I'm getting back on the FXR for a trip back home to North Carolina. However, I was noticing online that this is the weekend for the Lowbrow Getdown, so I'm going to head over to Ohio and see what that's all about on the way home. It's only about 3 hours out of the way. So, getting on the road. When I got on the road, the forecast was basically for rain and thunder showers intermixed on the way over to Ohio. As you can see, sit there, it's blue behind me and dark and cloudy in front of me, and I think I'm going to have a real torture video to give you guys of me just getting soaked the whole way. But it didn't work out that way. This is me in Syracuse, meeting my friend for lunch, or breakfast rather. Syracuse is the town I grew up in, and it's kind of a crack den. It's Alto Cinco Mexican place, it's pretty good. And then it's sunny all the way on the thruway. Not much interesting stuff to look at, so I didn't do any GoProing. But then once I get to Ohio and got off the thruway, taking a film of the type of terrain that you can drive through in Ohio. It's actually pretty beautiful there. Then I get to the Lowbrow Getdown and do a couple of walk-arounds on the bikes. This is a nice little shovel head chopper. It's got a real nice high-end seat. I took this, what I really liked about this panhead was the seat on it. I covet these king-queen seats. I like riding with them. I think they're really comfortable to lean up against that. And I think it would be pretty functional. I'd get to drive around with the old lady too. She'd be much happier on that than she is on the passenger pylon on the Hafley Brothers Bates reproduction. This bike is a little Sportster chopper. It's got some crazy handlebars. See those as they cross over like that? That to me looks like you need some really strong welds there. Otherwise you could break that, but it's pretty wild design there. Here's a Triumph pre-unit, if I am getting that right with the Brit bikes. It's highly custom, all polished steel. The guy who made it stopped and talked to us for a little while. It's pretty awesome. It's got some real nice finished leather work on it, and it's a very beautiful bike. He's got a lot of custom machined parts on it as well. I love fucking hardtailed Evos, man. Ever since Velarde was busting those wheelies with the Deer Slayer.
Yeah, so we were pulling out in the crowd and like he was nailing those, like he was pulling the front wheel off the ground. It was so sick. I was like right beside him coming out of Barstow.
So I get kind of weird when I look at some certain bikes. They just kind of do it for me. It's probably like a 16-year-old looking at a pretty girl, but this one was definitely one that does it for me. It's nice and use of negative space, and just the whole bike flowed together really well. It's got those super narrow bars, which I'm a little bit nervous. Maybe they're maybe a fad thing, and 5 years from now I'm going to look back and be like, what was I thinking? But in the meantime, I can't get enough of them. This is a real cool little slab side shovel. I like how this whole thing is set up. The bars have a good symmetry with the width of the bottom end of those Z bars matching the forks real well. And this is one of the two bikes that we saw there that was a cone shovel head put into a pan head frame. So that is something I've heard a lot of guys talk about being like one of the best combos. It makes for a real compact, tight looking bike. The clearance for the top tube is like really tight to the aft rocker box, and it just looks really has a good aesthetic when it's all put together inside of one of those. So this bike obviously is awesome. Here's a little pan head. It's a little bit bright colored for my taste, but I like the symmetry of it. I like the lines of it. I would prefer it to be black. This bike has awesome 2-into-2 exhaust. It's pretty crazy. You'll see it here. The front end looks like abdominal cavity or something. It's like got pipes going all over the place. Must have been a nightmare to weld up, but it looks pretty cool. And this is a pretty stock sporty, but I liked how the front end was set up. This bike is a real cool shovel head. What I liked most about this bike was the front forks. The Springer front end has that chrome top and black bottom. I love that when I see it on Springer front ends. I've been getting into muscle cars recently, and this is a cool Trans Am that the guys were driving around. It's got a real nice interior. If I had this car, I would leave the outside of it just like it is, kind of busted up. I would redo the suspension and redo the motor, or maybe put a crate motor in and just have it be mechanically super sound but look trashy like that. That would be awesome. This bike is the other shovel head, cone shovel head, put into a panhead frame. So that's a panhead wishbone frame. I talked to the guy who put this together. He seemed like a real young guy, but he definitely knew what he was talking about. I asked him about running the title on that because panhead frames don't have a VIN number. They had it on the engine. And he said that he just took a piece of metal and stamped the engine's VIN into the piece of metal and carries that around in his wallet. And he says that that does it for the cops, and they don't ask any more questions if he shows them that. So just a heads up for you guys who are thinking about putting a titled motor into a untitleable frame. This is another bike that makes me a little bit weird. That geometry, take a good look, maybe pause it there. That geometry of that deraked 35mm shaved front end with the extended forks is just perfect. I absolutely love this bike. I wish that the guy's tent wasn't right up so close to the side of it, because I would have liked to see the other side, but I close my eyes at night before I go to bed and imagine that motorcycle. And this Sporty, basically, I don't know, I'm a sucker for fork boots, so there's nothing else really super special about it. And just a couple other pretty cool choppers. Alright, this bike was, I usually don't like Japanese bike choppers that much, but this bike was pretty cool. It had a really nice symmetry to it, almost looked like a drag racing bike the way it was set up. And that van wins the van award for the show, in my opinion. It's definitely the cleanest shorty van. There was 2 others there at the show, but that one was the coolest. And since everyone likes to watch other people suffer, that is how I slept the night, and some lawn chairs. Thanks to Jamie, my buddy from the Stampede, let me crash at his campsite and bought me dinner. I slept in one of their folding chairs with my legs over the top of the coals for the fire to try and keep warm because it was like 60 degrees. The Lowbrow Getdown is like nothing I've ever been to before. It's at this crazy hippie campground with like tons of hippies. The hippies and bikers intermix, and it's just wild all night long.
And I'm back from the only trip I'm going to take this summer. It was about 2,000 miles in 1 week. Yesterday I came back from the Lowbrow Getdown in Ohio back to North Carolina, which is about 670 miles. Did that in about 9 hours. And got my dog out of the slammer. So she's a free woman again. And overall trip was awesome. I only got stuck in the rain once. And the FXR was amazing. Fully convinced that Harley's decision to discontinue them is a thinly veiled cost of manufacturing effort, veiled by maybe some styling issues. But the thing is super fast. I never touched it with a single wrench the entire time. It's really smooth, takes the highway speeds, even with just the 5-speed, it keeps wanting to go faster than 80 and all day. It's awesome. It's the best bike I've ever had, probably. And so that's it. I hope you enjoy it.
And now that vacation is over, it's time to get back to the serious, normal life stuff.